After I was diagnosed, I don't think I really understood what having autism meant. It was hard. I had adults that would help me. I knew I was different and I knew that I needed them, but I didn't know why.
My son more than ever wants to go to the military. All he does is train. You can't have autism. So how do we gear him into having a successful future without telling him that he can't do something because he was born different?
Around the time I was 23, I came across a traits list, and I just knew it was me, but I still wanted to seek a professional diagnosis.
It costs $5,000 to $8,000 on average to get an autism diagnosis.
The neurologist diagnosed Misha in about 20 minutes and then said that it's a lifelong condition. We don't know what the limits are. We don't know what the causes are. We have no cures. Have a nice day.
The system is wrong, and it makes me very angry.
He had blurted out in class that he wanted to kill himself. It scared me so much. My son's a sweet, loving, kind, gentle being. I don't want you to ever feel like that. Do you understand me?
Yes.
Okay. Just doing my best, trying to get through day by day. This is what we really need to communicate.
I feel thirsty and tired.
You're thirsty and tired. Okay, honey.
I think one of the common misconceptions about autism is that you don't like people.
A story on the front page of our local newspaper reported how the principal at my high school told a staff member, "The retard can't be valedictorian."
I love you. I love you too. Once I really understood what autism meant, it was easier because then I could find my community.
In your commencement address, you bring up Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, about gratitude, about life.
About sharing your last crust of bread. That's what it means to be human.
Wow. Can I give you a hug? You are such a beautiful soul.
This is about them tapping into their own inspiration, using art to make sense of their world.
You can hear music and then you can just play it?
And I can just play it, yes.
How did you come to a place of peace with me as your parent being autistic? Oh, you haven't?
My message to any girl, any boy struggling with autism is that it is your superpower. Embrace it.
Learning from all these autistic people on this journey has made me realize that I feel a part of something.
So this is a trailer for a documentary film that Scott Steindorff and I made this last year called Understanding Autism, and it just came out on PBS 2 days ago, so you can watch the full thing. So I'm really excited to introduce our next speaker. This is one of my favorite people on the planet, my collaborator, producing partner, and the person who diagnosed me with autism many years ago. So, Scott Steindorff, come on down.
Thank you. I'm Scott, and I'm autistic. I've been in this business for probably close to 30 years. And if I've had success in this business, which I'm the last person to know I'm doing good, but I've made a lot of movies and TV shows that have been successful, and my success in the entertainment business is a result of me being autistic, because the skills that I have enabled me to succeed. And I'm going to explain that. So at the age of 10, I would stare up at the ceiling. I was getting bullied. I was getting rejected. I had no friends. I had a speech impediment. I struggled. I suffered. And the teacher took me out and said, "We're going to have a conference with your parents because we think you're taking drugs." So that was my first diagnosis. And so Obviously, I didn't even know what drugs were. I ended up taking drugs, probably because of my autism. But it was, I was bullied, I was rejected, and it wasn't until the 8th grade where they had a program called MARS, which was music, art, reading, and speech. And I learned how to speak, and I was a voracious reader, and I could retain what I read, and loved music and loved art. And at that time of my life, I decided I'm going to go into the creative world. And I started writing at a very early age. And so my journey began in the real estate business because my father was a real estate developer. And I ended up at a very early age, 23, going to rehab because of drinking and cocaine, and I've been sober for 40 years. Looking back, I would say that most likely if I understood my autism, I wouldn't have had that issue because I was masking my feelings. I was trying to hide who I was, and I would do it by myself. So it was a very painful experience in my life. But what I learned I started going to AA, and they would I'm an alcoholic, but don't tell anybody, and that program was 80 years ago, and I'm grateful for that program. But today, I'm autistic, and I want everybody to know. And I've been very fortunate in this business to work with a lot of people who are very well-known directors, well-known actors, well-known producers, and they are autistic. And we need them to unmask so we can help people. And so it was very important for me to unmask my autism because there's so many people struggling and suffering like I did, and it's nothing to hide. And some of my super skills that have enabled me in this business is in real estate, I would cold call. I wouldn't go meet people. I had this ability to get on the phone and call 100 people, and one person would answer the phone, and it would turn into a successful transaction. And so I learned those skills because I was afraid of talking to people. I wasn't afraid. I was just uncomfortable with you people. And so I had no social skills. And so I ended up having this vision. I grew up in Scottsdale, Arizona, and here's one of my autistic traits. I don't care what you think about me because I don't understand you. And so I had this idea, I'm going to go out and buy farms and rezone them and turn them into shopping centers. And I had $2,500 to my name. And I ended up doing that and being very successful at it when I was 25 years old and had this vision. And I think a lot of autistic people have a vision because we think differently. And thinking differently is our superpower. We look at people, places, things, ideas differently. And that's called innovation. And when I came to Hollywood, which is what I always wanted to do, I looked at things differently. And I mean, to be honest, I didn't do any networking because it wasn't my, superpower. And so what I would do is I would call people and cold call people. And that's how I broke into Hollywood. I would make 100 phone calls a day because I didn't want to go to party. I still get uncomfortable going to parties and social functions, but I was able to, you know, my philosophy is if one person picks up that phone and takes my call and I connect with them, then I've succeeded for the day. And I started building a network of people that way. I'm not telling you guys to do what I did, but this is what I did because that's all I knew how. And I was a reader. That was my special interest. So I started buying the rights to books to turn into movies and TV shows. And that became my career. You know, I went to the bookstore in Las Vegas and I bought a book called The Human Stain by Philip Roth. And I called about the rights and they said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm nobody." But Philip Roth, the author, was really interested in Las Vegas and doing a story. So he called me up and he called me for 2 straight weeks. And then I made an offer. I had a little money that I had made, and I was competing against this guy named Harvey Weinstein. Yeah. And so I outbid Harvey Weinstein, and I got the rights. And it's kind of a cool story. I immediately drove to Los Angeles, and the studios all knew that I had the book, and they all wanted to meet with me. And so I went to Paramount, and I met with a producer, or a guy that owned a finance company as part of Paramount. And he said, "I want to do the deal with you." And I said, "Well, then write me a check." And he said, "Well, that's not how this business works." And I go, "Okay." And I stood up because I had a meeting at Fox afterwards. And he said, "No, sit down. What do you want?" And I asked for an enormous amount of money and credit, and this is how it's going to be done. And he said, "I'll never do that." I got up to walk out. And then he said, "Okay, I'll do that deal." And then the paperwork for the book was in my car. And so I walked to my car, and they had security block me from leaving Paramount because they wanted to make sure that I did the deal. And I did the deal with them. And that was my big break. And then every major actor started calling, and I ended up making the movie with Anthony Hopkins, who's on the spectrum, and Nicole Kidman and Gary Sinise and a bunch of great actors. And so that was my big first break. But again, because of my autism, I didn't understand all this, you know, structure and logic of how I'm supposed to do things. And I've never been able to figure that out, and I've done pretty fucking good not figuring it out. So I think as autistic, if you look at Silicon Valley, for example, the person that started ChatGPT is autistic. The person that started Tesla is autistic. The person that started Facebook's autistic. The whole town is full of autistic people. And so is Hollywood. And nobody talks about it here. And we need to make this part of the conversation, and neurodivergent people need a seat at the table. We need to be represented. And we need to be represented for what we can offer and give, because we have talents. And, you know, I just did this movie, Understanding Autism, that I directed, we went around the world and met so many autistic families and kids and people that need a lot of support, people that are non-speaking. And what I discovered about the non-speaking autistic people is that they're more intelligent than we are. They're more intelligent. And this whole misconception that they shouldn't have devices because they'll get in trouble. I mean, Elizabeth Bonkers, who some of you may know, graduated the top of her college. She's got a foundation to get tablets to 31 million non-speaking autistic people around the world. And these people have, most of them have higher intelligence. And that's the biggest misconception about autism. Even in Hollywood, oh, he's autistic, oh, he's ADHD. No, we have, this whole town was built on autism. You know, there was a movie by a famous director 2 years ago, and it starts off with a train, and I can't do algebra, and all this. I'm not going to name that person, but you can guess the movie. And these people need to speak out, because they can help so many people that are in this room and in this community to break into Hollywood. And so I think the biggest lesson that I've learned in my experience is that thinking differently is your superpower. Movies, we go to movies that are different, even though you'll go, well, we want this kind of movie. But if you go in there and pitch that movie that is Dune 3 or whatever, you're going to blow people away. And also TV, you know, is the same thing. I read this book called Station 11 before it came out. And I said, this is so cool, so different, so unique. I bought the rights the next day and made the TV series for HBO, and it was a great experience. And so I think that we have so much to offer Hollywood, the entertainment world, and don't try to fit in. Be your authentic self. Be who you are, and you will find your way, your path, but find those special interests. Don't try to adhere to the group. Be different. Think different. Feel different. And with that, you will have some success. I promise you. And reach out. Reach out to people. Reach out to people that have, you know, when I was cold calling I still cold call, by the way, but when I was young, I went to the top. I went to the biggest shopping center developer in the world. His name was Melvin Simon, and he took my call. And I called him the next day, and he took my call, and he became my mentor. And he still has one of the largest, it's called the Simon Property Group. He became my friend. And I ended up doing 2 shopping centers with him because I, through my autism, didn't really care what these people thought about me and broke through to the top. And it made my career. So find a mentor. Find somebody that can help you pave your way in your special interests. You know, this thing about special interests with autism is so true because that's my whole career. At the age of 10, as I was bullied, I escaped into reading, and I've made, you know, a dozen movies on books. And so I encourage everybody to embrace your autism and to be proud of it. because we were born wired differently, and that's our advantage in this playing field of Hollywood. Thank you and good luck.